सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ नमो भगवते वैवस्वताय मृत्यवे ब्रह्मविद्याचार्याय नचिकेतसे च. Humble prostrations to one and all. So in the last class, we saw that all confusions and delusions of the mind were compared with the knots of the heart, Hridaya Granthi. And all these knots are hanging on to one primary knot, and that is avidya, self-ignorance. So once this self-ignorance is destroyed, all the other knots are also destroyed automatically. And the only way to destroy this self-ignorance is through self-knowledge. And once a person gains this self-knowledge, such a person attains the state of immortality. Such a person attains the state of perfection. He becomes Brahman. Brahmavit Brahmaiva Bhavati. The next verse, verse number 16, Bhagavan Śaṅkarācārya says that it is to glorify this knowledge of the self. But this glorification is done using a negative approach. What is negative approach? When something is glorified by criticizing everything else, then that approach is called negative approach. So here, by criticizing other paths, by finding defects in the other paths, the glorification of this path of self-knowledge is done. So this verse is nothing but criticism of every other path. So let us see verse number 16. Shatam chaika cha hridayasya nadyah tasam urdhanam abhinisrutaika tayurdhvamayanamritatvameti vishwanganya utkramane bhavanti. Hridayasya nadyah shatam cha eka. The nerves of the heart are 101. Shatam cha eka, 101. So there are 101 nāḍīs, loosely translated as nerves. There are 101 nerves of the heart. Tasam, among them, eka, one, mūrdhanam abhinisruta. It passes through the crown of the head. So among these 101 nāḍīs, one passes through the crown of the head. Taya urdhvam ayan, going through that one nāḍī, amritattvam eti, one attains immortality. Vishwak anyaha, the other nāḍīs, they branch out otherwise. They have different directions. And what happens when a person goes through that nāḍī at the time of death? Utkramane bhavanti. Those nāḍīs, those 100 ones, other than that one, those 100 nadis become the cause of death. Utkramane bhavanti. And they are for the attainment of worldly state alone. So, the nerves of the heart are 101 in number. Of them, one nerve passes through the crown of the head. Going through that nadi, one attains immortality. The others that have different directions become the cause of death. This is the translation of this verse. Now, nadya, nerves. So, they are the nerves through which sensations are sent. Even blood is also sent. Shatam cha shatasankhya eka cha hridayasya nadya. Bhagavan Śaṅkarācārya says there are 101 nerve centers in the heart. And now, among these 101, there is one special nadi. That's what the verse says. And what is its name? So, Bhagavan Śaṅkarācārya says that special nadi is called Sushumna nadi. Sushumna nadi. What is its specialty? So, Bhagavan says, Tasam madhye Murdhanam bhitva vinisrata nirgata Sushumna nama. Among these 101, there is one nadi named Sushumna nadi which passes through the crown of the head. So, this Sushumna nadi is the one which connects the base of the spine to the crown of the head. It is a central nadi and runs straight up the length of the spinal cord and passes through each of the chakras. This is what the people practicing Kundalini Yoga, they say. So this nadi runs straight up the length of the spinal cord and passes through each of the chakras. Now this name Sushumna has come from two terms, Su and Mna. Su means good, Mna means to think. So therefore, Sushumna means that nadi which is activated when our thoughts are good, noble, divine. And now what is the most auspicious thought? The most auspicious thought is the thought of God. So therefore, this nadi is activated when we entertain spiritual thoughts. And therefore, Sushumna nadi is also called as Brahma nadi, because this nadi takes us to Brahman, or it takes us to Brahmaloka. The discussion we will take it up later regarding Brahmaloka, etc. So that is why this nadi is also called as Brahma nadi. It is also called as Saraswati nadi, because this nadi must be activated to gain the absolute knowledge. This nadi is sometimes also called as Shanti nadi, because as this nadi gets activated, there is more and more peace experienced by us. A spiritual peace. So whenever spiritual peace is experienced by us, understand that this nadi is activated. So therefore, this nadi is also called as the pathway to salvation and enlightenment. So Bhagavan Śaṅkarācārya says, Taya antakale hridaye atmanam vashikritya yojayet. Antakale, at the time of death, Taya, through that Sushumna nadi, atmanam vashikritya, one should bring one's mind under control. Hridaye yojayet, and then get that mind concentrated in the heart. So at the time of death, through this Sushumna nadi, one should bring one's mind under control and concentrate it in the heart region. Then what will happen? tayanadya, through that Sushumna Nadi, Urdhvam Ayan, then that yogi go up into the higher worlds. Aditya Dwarena, through the path of the sun. Amritattvam, Amaranadharmatvam, Apekshikam. So this yogi, through the Sushumna Nadi, he goes to the higher worlds and attain what is called as the world of the immortal, or what is called as Brahmaloka. So this Aditya Dwara, the path of sun, in the 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, the same path is called as Uttarayana Marga or Shukla Marga. These terms come in the 8th chapter. Okay. So these yogis, through Sushumna Nadi, they reach the world of Brahmaji, Brahmaloka, Satyaloka. And what is the nature of that world? It is a world of immortality, but Bhagavan Śaṅkarācārya says here, Apekshikam. It is only a world of relative immortality, because that world also perishes during pralaya, during dissolution. So to prove this, Bhagavan Śaṅkarācārya quotes Vishnu Purana and says, Abhuta samplavam sthanam amritattvam vibhavyate. The place that lasts till the absorption of all elements, meaning the world that lasts till cosmic dissolution. That means even the Brahmaloka has to perish after pralaya, after cosmic dissolution. Hence this world is also not absolutely immortal. And that is why Bhagavan Śaṅkarācārya says this Amritattvam is apekshikam, is relatively immortal, not absolutely immortal. So Amritattvam eti, attains immortality, means what? Bhagavan Śaṅkarācārya says Brahmana saha. So these yogis, after going to Brahmaloka, what do these yogis do? After going to Brahmaloka through this Sushumna Nadi, what do these yogis do? Brahmana saha, along with Brahmaji, Brahmaloka gatan anupaman bhogan bhuktva, after having enjoyed incomparable unlimited pleasures of Brahmaloka, kalantarena, in due course of time, mukhya amritattvam eti, this jiva, this yogi, attains absolute immortality. So they go to this world and then finally they gain absolute immortality. This discussion we will take it up later. Anyaha, the other nadis, what are their characteristics? Vishwak. Vishwak means that branch out in different directions. The other 100 nadis, they branch out in different directions, meaning they don't pass through the crown of the head, unlike Sushumna Nadi. Rather, they pass through various other directions. So when a person dies through these nadis, what happens? Utkramane. When a person dies passing through these nadis, what happens to that person? Samsara pratipatti artha eva bhavati. Such a person returns back to this samsara. That person is born again in this world. So in short, the gist of this verse is the one who at the time of death leaves the body through the Sushumna Nadi, goes to Brahmaloka and attains temporary immortality. All others who leave the body through other nadis come back to this world. This is the gist of this verse. So let us analyze now. Now, there are 5 types of people in this world. There are 5 types of people. The first category, they are called as abhaktas. They are not bhaktas. They don't believe in God. They are highly worldly, sensuous, extroverted. They are atheists, materialistic. So, what is their fate? They go to the lower worlds. Atala, Vitala, Sutala, Talatala, Mahatala, Rasatala, Patala. They are all called the lower worlds. You will find that even in this body, the lower parts are mainly concerned with sexual centers. Such people whose lives are centered around lower cravings, they are the ones who go to the lower worlds. The tamasic people, they find joy in hurting others, harming others. They find joy in the lower pleasures of the world. Such people go to the lower worlds. So, this is the first one, abhaktas, people with extremely impure mind. The second one, they are called as sakama artha artharthi bhaktas. This is the second category. Sakama artha artharthi bhaktas. So they are sakama bhaktas. What does it mean? Sakama, full of kamana. So they have lot of worldly desires, and to fulfill those worldly desires, they go to God. They are artha artharthi bhaktas. They worship God for getting rid of their suffering. They worship God to gain material prosperity. Artha means affliction. Artharthi means desiring material prosperity. So, they are devotees, no doubt, but they don't want God, they want something from God. For them, God is the means, world is the goal. So they live a decently disciplined family life, a pure life. Such people go to Swargadi lokas. Bhuhu, Bhuvaha, Suvaha. They are the higher worlds. They are the heavenly worlds, the pleasure giving worlds. So they go to these higher worlds because they have lived a disciplined life. So they go to these higher worlds and then come back. As Gita says, Prapya punyakritan lokan ushitva shashwati samaha shuchinam srimatam gehe yoga bhrashtaha abhijayate. They go to the higher meritorious worlds after death and are again born in a cultured, prosperous family. So this is the second category. So the first one, abhaktas. Second one, sakama artha artharthi bhaktas. Now the third category of people, we can call them sakama jitnyasu bhaktas. They are sadhakas. They strive for God realization. Their goal is to attain God realization, but still they have some worldly vasanas, some deep-rooted worldly desires. Hence, they don't get liberation because of these worldly desires. What happens to these sadhakas? Gita says, Athava yoginameva kule bhavati dhimatam. So these sadhakas, they are born again to this world, but they are born in the family of yogis. At a very young age, they are exposed to spiritual disciplines due to their previous samskaras. And there, they continue to strive for God realization. So this is what happens to Sakama Jitnyasu Bhakta. Jitnyasa means the desire to know God, desire to get liberated. That is called as Jitnyasa. So these devotees are called Sakama Jitnyasu Bhaktas. Though they have desire for God realization, still there is some worldly desire, and therefore they are born back. In fact, such devotees, they go to even higher worlds. So after Bhuhu, Bhuvaha, Suvaha, Mahaha, Janaha, Tapaha, these three worlds they are born. They go after death. There are even higher worlds, the world of the sadhakas. But after going to those worlds, they come back again because of their worldly vasanas. So first one, abhaktas. Second one, sakama artha artharthi bhaktas. Third one, sakama jitnyasu bhaktas. And now the fourth one. They are called saguna nishkama bhaktas. Saguna nishkama bhaktas. So they are saguna bhaktas. What does it mean? They are seekers of God with attributes, with name, form, etc. So they love God as their Ishtadevata. They love God in a particular form, and they have a particular relationship with God. They see God as their master, as their beloved, as father, mother, friend, etc. At the same time, they are nishkama bhaktas. They love God and God alone. They don't have any other worldly desire. Now the question is, what will happen to them? They don't have any worldly desires, and therefore they need not come back to this world again. Because a necessary condition to come back to this world is desire for some worldly experience. They don't have it, hence they will not come back to this world. But the next question is, are they fit for moksha? Are they fit for liberation? No, because the condition for liberation, the necessary condition for liberation is the knowledge of the self. That they don't have. They have never gained the knowledge of the self. So can they be liberated? No. So they can neither come back to this world because they don't have worldly desires, nor can they be liberated because they have not attained self-knowledge. In fact, these people reject the knowledge of the self. Many times we find devotees doing that. They prefer to remain separate from the Lord, enjoying the company of the Lord, enjoying the sweetness of the Lord, enjoying loving God, and therefore they reject the knowledge of the self. What happens to such people? So these people go to the world of their Ishtadevata because that is what they desired. So the Lord has to give them the experience where they spend their time in the company of their Ishtadevata. So if that yogi is a Vishnu Bhakta, then he goes to Vaikuntha. If he is a Shiva Bhakta, he goes to Kailasa. And what is the nature of this world? This world of Saguna Brahman is called Brahmaloka. It is a world projected by an extremely pure mind, free from all worldly vasanas, but filled with Ishtadevata upasana samskaras. It is a world of total mind intellect. It is a world of the Hiranyagarbha. It is a world of Sarvajna, Sarvashaktiman, Sarvavyapi Ishvara, all-knowing, all-powerful, all-pervading Lord. It is a world of the Lord, but this world is projected by a pure mind of the sadhaka. But what are the samskaras filled in that mind? It is filled with Ishtadevata upasana samskaras. The tendencies, impressions gathered due to the upasana of Ishtadevata, worship of Ishtadevata. And hence, the supreme deity in that world will depend upon what upasana that yogi has done. So the Shiva Upasaka will see Shiva as the highest Lord. A Vishnu Upasaka will see Vishnu as the highest Lord. So this world is called Brahmaloka, the world of the Creator. It is also called Satyaloka, the world of truth. This is the highest loka possible for any embodied being. This is also called the world of Hiranyagarbha. So these people at the time of death go through the Uttarayana Marga or Shukla Marga or the path of light, path of brightness. And this path is also called the path of no return, Anavritti Marga. That is what is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, 8th chapter. So such people go to Brahmaloka. Here, this world is called Apekshikam Amrutatvam, relatively immortal. It's a relatively immortal world because this world has to dissolve when there is a cosmic dissolution, pralaya. Because this world is projected by a mind filled with upasana samskaras, hence, when the mind dissolves in pralaya, that world also has to dissolve. So this world is not absolutely immortal. It is said that in this world, at the time of pralaya, at the time of cosmic dissolution, their own Ishta Devata then gives them the knowledge of Vedanta, the knowledge of the self, and frees them from self-ignorance and gives them Tattvamasi Upadesha, Mahavakya Upadesha, and liberates them. So this is what is mentioned here. So the first one, abhaktas. Second one, sakama artha artharthi bhaktas. Third one, sakama jitnyasu bhaktas. Fourth one, that we just discussed, nishkama saguna bhaktas. And now the last one, the fifth one, jnani bhaktas or nishkama nirguna bhaktas. They are the realized masters. What happens to them? Will they come back? No, because they are nishkama bhaktas. Since they don't have any worldly desire, they don't come back to this world. Okay. Will they go to some other world like Brahmaloka? No, because they don't go to any world because they have realized that there is no world to go. Because everything except the self is an illusion. Even when they are alive, they have realized their oneness with the self and they have completely disidentified with their mind and the body. They are firmly rooted in the self, in pure consciousness. Their understanding is Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. Everything other than the self, everything other than Brahman is an illusion. And hence all these worlds are nothing but illusion. And there is no question of their going to any of these worlds. Because according to them, in their understanding, there is no world to come and go. They are the ones who are truly liberated. So this is the difference between Nishkama Saguna Bhakta and Nishkama Nirguna Bhaktas. The former maintains the identification with the subtle body, while the latter has disidentified with the subtle body while exiting the body. Now, there are two terms which are found in our scriptures: kramamukti and sadyo-mukti. In kramamukti, the yogi goes to the higher worlds like Satyaloka and get liberated. They gain the knowledge of Vedanta from their Ishtadevata in their Brahmaloka and they gain liberation. So this liberation is called kramamukti, meaning liberation in stages. Nishkama Saguna Bhaktas attain this kind of mukti, kramamukti. The second one is called sadyo-mukti. In sadyo-mukti, yogi gains liberation here itself, even while living in this world itself, by gaining self-knowledge. This liberation is called sadyo-mukti, meaning immediate liberation. There is no going to some world, etc. No. Right here, right now, you are liberated. So, Nishkama Saguna Bhaktas gain kramamukti, and Nishkama Nirguna Bhaktas or Jnanis, they gain sadyo-mukti. Now, here in this verse it is said, Anya Vishwak Utkramane Bhavanti. Anyone who leaves the body through any other nāḍī other than Sushumna nāḍī is going to be born again. What does it mean? In simple words, it means a person with spiritual thoughts attains God. A person with a worldly thought comes back to the world. Worldly thoughts can be in hundreds. Spiritual thought can only be one, because spirit or the self is only one. So, we don't have to worry about Sushumna nāḍī. Anyone who does spiritual sadhana intensifies spiritual thoughts. And whenever spiritual thoughts are entertained, Sushumna nāḍī is automatically activated. Hence, we need not worry about Sushumna nāḍī at all. We need to ensure only entertaining spiritual thoughts. That's all we need to do. We don't have to worry about these nāḍīs. Our job is only to think of God, remember God, meditate and contemplate upon God. If this is done, everything else will fall in place. Whatever nāḍīs are to be activated, Sushumna nāḍī, etc., automatically that happens. We need not bother about any of this. And this is exactly what is said in Bhagavad Gita also. Antakale cha mameva smaran muktva kalevaram yaf prayati samadbhavam yati nastyatra samshayah. The one who remembers me at the time of death, Bhagavan says, such a person reaches me. There is no doubt about it. On the other hand, yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajatyante kalevaram tam tamevaiti kaunteya sada tadbhava bhavitah. Whatever thought a person entertains at the time of death, that person goes to such worlds determined by those worldly thoughts. So this is the law. The law is simple. If I think of God, I attain God. If I think of world, I attain world. This is a simple law. So, exiting the body through Sushumna nāḍī means exiting the body thinking of God. Anyone who can leave the body remembering God reaches God. This is the essence of this verse. Now, Bhagwan Śaṅkarācārya says that this verse is only to glorify self-knowledge. Utkrishta Brahma Vidya Phalastutaye. To glorify the greatness of Brahma Vidya, this verse is given. So, liberation is only for those who gain this knowledge. Those who ignore this knowledge, they are born again and again. Even those who do other upasanas and sadhanas, they go to the higher worlds and come back. Even for the Nishkama Saguna Bhaktas, they have to finally gain this self-knowledge to gain liberation. So by all means, striving for this knowledge alone is the greatest sadhana. To prove this, this verse has been given, says Bhagavan Śaṅkarācārya. Utkrishta Brahma Vidya Phalastutaye. Now, the text comes to an end. The next verse is the essence of the entire teaching of all the vallis in the Kathopanishad. The essence is given in verse number 17. And thus, the teaching is concluded. Angushtamatra purushontaraatma sada jananam hridaye sannivishtaha tam swat sharirat pravruhet munjadiveshikam dhairyena tam vidyachukramamrutam tam vidyachukramamrutamiti. Purushaha, That Supreme Being, Angushtamatra, is of the size of a thumb. Antaratma, that Supreme Being is the indwelling self. Sada Jananam Hridaye Sannivishtaha, ever seated in the hearts of men, hearts of all. Tam Swa Sharirat Pravruhet, may you pull out, separate, raise from one's own body. Munjad Ishikam Iva, like the stalk from the munja grass. Dhairyena, unerringly. Tam Vidyat Shukram Amritam, know him to be pure and immortal. Okay, so what is said here? Purushaha Antaratma. This Supreme Being or God is the very self in us, is the very innermost essence in us. Where does he reside? Where should we experience him? Sada Jananam Hridaye Sannivishtaha, always residing in the hearts of all. Angushtamatra, he is of the size of the thumb. So just like the thumb rests inside the closed fist, so too Lord resides in the heart. So the closed fist is like the heart, and the thumb inside the fist is like the Lord. This usage has come already in the earlier valli also. In the second chapter, first valli, verses 12 and 13, here also this Angushtamatra Purusha, this term has come. So the whole idea is the Lord is seated in the heart as the very self in us, and he is the subtlemost presence in us. This extremely subtle self in us is the Lord of the entire universe. It is the ultimate reality, and we must know this. So in this complex universe, there is only one thing to be known: our own self. The moment we know our own self, we know the essence of this world, we know the essence of this creation, we know who God is, we know everything when we know our own true self. How to know this extremely subtle self? What should we do in life? So the instruction is given, Pravruhet. Pravruhet means, Bhagavan Shankaracharya says, Udyachet. Udyachet means to rise. Nishkarshet. Nishkarshet means to pull out. Prithak Kuryat means separate it. So we have to separate the self from the non-self in us. All misery is because we have mixed up the self and the non-self. It is exactly like eating the chocolate along with the wrapper. Chocolate is tasty, but with the wrapper, it tastes bitter. So too, the nature of the self is Ananda Sarupa, but when that pure self is mixed with the BMI, body, mind, intellect, Ananda becomes Dukkha, joy becomes sorrow. So, just like we separate the chocolate from the wrapper and then eat only the chocolate, so too we must first separate the self from the non-self. Viveka Shakti has to be used. Our discriminative power has to be used. Chocolate and the wrapper is a modern example. Here the Upanishad gives an example of the ancient times. What is the example? Munjat iva ishikam. Like the munja grass from the stalk. Ishika means stalk. This munja grass is covered by a thick covering called stalk or ishika. Now, this lower end of this munja grass is very tender, very sweet. But this grass is covered with an outer thick layer called stalk, ishika. So, We have to pull out this munja grass from the stalk in order to enjoy the sweetness of munja grass. As children, we used to do this on our way to school. But while pulling out the grass from the stalk, we have to be extremely careful. Otherwise, the grass, being very tender, would break and separation from the stalk becomes impossible. The same example is given here. To enjoy the sweetness of the tender munja grass, we have to separate it from the stalk. So too, to enjoy the bliss of the self, this self has to be separated from the non-self. This is why this example is given. Svat sharirat pravruhet. Separate this self from the body. So along with the body, what are the non-self entities in us? So we must use the Panchakosha Viveka here. The 5 sheets which cover the self. What are they? Number 1, Annamaya Kosha, the food sheath or the body. Number 2, Pranamaya Kosha, the vital air sheath. Number 3, Manomaya Kosha, the mental sheath. Number 4, Vijnanamaya Kosha, the intellectual sheath. And number 5, Anandamaya Kosha, the bliss sheath. So more details regarding these Panchakoshas we find in Tattvabodha text, and also we find in Viveka Chudamani. Both these texts are written by Bhagavan Ādi Śaṅkarācārya. So more details about this Panchakoshas are present in these 2 texts. So these are the non-self. So the self or pure consciousness is different from all these 5 sheets, and therefore we have to separate the self from these 5 non-self sheets. How should the separation be done? So the guidance is given dhairyena. Dhairya comes from the term dhi. Dhi means intellect. So dhairyena means using our discriminative faculty. Here separation does not mean that we have to physically separate the self from the non-self. No. The separation is nothing but the right understanding of what self is and what self is not. This understanding the difference between the self and the non-self is called separation. It is not physical separation. Bhagavan Śaṅkarācārya gives another meaning for dhairyena. Bhagavan says apramadena. Apramadena means carefully. So here what is needed is not force or strength, but carefulness, alertness. Because the whole process is very subtle. Because we are dealing with the self, which is the subtlest of the subtle. The greater the subtlety, the greater the care needed. Tam vidyat shukram amritam. Know that self in us to be shukram, pure, amritam, immortal. Shukram means pure, auspicious. So hold on to that pure consciousness and come out of all impurities, come out of all inauspiciousness. Amritam means immortal. Hold on to that immortal essence in you and come out of all sorrows born out of the identification with the mortal body. Thus, come out of all the sorrows born out of the impermanence of worldly life. Tam vidya shukram amritamiti. Once again the same line is repeated. So tam vidya shukram amritam, tam vidya shukram amritamiti. So this line is repeated twice. Why is it repeated twice? So the repetition is an indication that this Upanishad has come to an end. The teaching has come to an end. In Upanishads, one of the ways to indicate the end of a scripture is a repetition of the last line. So the teaching is ended here. What about the story? The whole Upanishad started with a story. The story of Nachiketa, the story of Yamaraj. The whole story started, the Upanishad started with a story. So now the story also has to end. The story ends in the next verse. So naturally a question may come, did Nachiketa gain the self-knowledge given by Yamaraj? The third boon was dedicated for self-knowledge. Nachiketa asked self-knowledge from Yamaraj. Yamaraj said that, Nachiketa, you will not be able to understand this knowledge because it's a very subtle knowledge and even devatas are confused. So better ask something else. But Nachiketa said, no, I want only this knowledge. So naturally a question may come, after the whole teaching, did Nachiketa gain this knowledge? Or was the third boon of Nachiketa wasted? So this question is answered in the 18th verse, the last verse. Mrityu proktam nachiketothabhlabdhva vidyametam yoga vidhim cha kritsnam brahma prapto virajo bhut vimrityuhu anyopyevam yo vidadhyatmameva. Nachiketah labdhva, having attained. What did he attain? Vidyam, Brahma Vidyam, the knowledge of Brahman. Kritsnam yoga vidhim cha, and also the means to gain this knowledge. So Nachiketa gained both the knowledge and the means to gain knowledge. Vidya and Yoga Vidhi. Nachiketa gained both of them. Both are necessary. What is knowledge and how to gain the knowledge? Nachiketa gained both. Bhagavan Śaṅkarācārya adds, Safalam iti etat. Nachiketa not only gained the knowledge, he also got established in that knowledge. Nachiketa gained the knowledge, gained also the means to gain the knowledge, and he also got established in that knowledge. As we had seen, his mind was so pure. He was an embodiment of dispassion. He was an embodiment of purity. So he was a highly qualified student. So Nachiketa gained this knowledge and got established in this knowledge. But from whom did he gain? So Mrityu Proktam Etam Vidyam. This knowledge which was given to him by Mrityu. Mrityu means Lord Death, Lord Yamaraj. Lord Yamaraj was his teacher. He was the one who gave him the knowledge of the self. So what happened to Nachiketa after gaining this knowledge? Virajaha bhut. He became free from all impurities. Raja means impurity. Viraja means free from all impurities. So what are the impurities in us? Ahankara, mamakara, raga, dvesha, kama, krodha, kartrutva, bhoktrutva. They are all the impurities. Ahankara, mamakara, the I-ness and minus. Raga, dvesha, likes and dislikes. Kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, matsirya. Kama, lust, krodha, anger. Lobha, greed. Moha, infatuation. Mada, arrogance. Matsirya, jealousy. These are all the impurities of the mind. So Nachiketa became free from all impurities. In fact, this is what happens when we meditate upon that which is absolutely pure. We also become pure, our mind also becomes pure. Virajaha abhut. And then Brahma praptaha bhut. He attained Brahman. Brahmavid Brahmeva bhavati. The knower of Brahman becomes Brahman. He does not remain separate from Brahman. So this is the unique feature of spiritual knowledge. The knower of this knowledge becomes one with it. This does not happen in any other field of knowledge. In all other branches of knowledge, the knower remains separate from the knowledge. But here, the knower of the self becomes one with the self. This is the unique feature about Adhyatma Vidya. So then what happened to him? What is the benefit? Vimrutyuhu abhut. He became free from mrityu, death. He became completely identified with the immortal self, and thus he became immortal. Now Shruti Mata says to all of us, Anyaha api, others also, Yaha evam adhyatmam vit, the one who knows in this way, this Adhyatma Vidya, this self-knowledge, they also will attain the same state. So here Bhagavan Shankaracharya says, Na anyat rupam apratyak rupam kintu pratyak swarupam eva tattvam. God has to be known as one's own self. That alone is a reality. And that alone is the final culmination of knowledge. As long as we have not known God as our own self, we have not known God in reality. And that is why spiritual knowledge is called Adhyatma Vidya. There is a term used here. Adhi Atma. Atma means I. So Adhyatma means pertaining to I, associated with I. That knowledge which is directly associated with I. So the whole purpose of sadhana is to know myself as I am. So God has to be known as one's own self. This is called as Ishvara Darshanam. Yaha evam adhyatmam vid. The one who knows in this way, the Adhyatma Vidya, the self-knowledge. Evam eva. They also will attain the same state which Nachiketa has attained. So with this beautiful Upanishad ends. Like Nachiketa, may we all gain the qualification for this knowledge. May we all gain that purity of mind, that kind of dispassion, that sadhana chatushtaya sampatti. May we all gain this qualification and may we all get established in this knowledge. Once again, prostrations to Lord Yamaraj, prostrations to the ideal student Nachiketa, prostrations to Bhagavan Shankaracharya, who has made these verses clear for us through his simple commentary. Sincerely invoking the grace of the Lord and the blessings of the entire Guru Parampara. Hari Om. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayah, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet, asato ma sadgamaya, तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मा अमृतं गमय। ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ॐ।